A science experiment gone terribly wrong. Here's what's coming up on the Nice Guys on Business.
Just to try limiting your eating to literally 12 hours a day. So whenever you have breakfast, if you have breakfast at 7 o'clock, try to finish dinner by 7 p.m. Most people, when they first hear that, they say that sounds trivial, that sounds easy. But when you try it, again, you realize how much of this kind of mindless grazing you're doing kind of at all hours. And I think that's a really nice way to just kind of get a little bit of control over your diet as a first step.
Badges? They don't need no stinking badges. Need an education on how to grow your business? The Nice Guys are here to help. Learn about great customer service, networking, and how just being nice can help you prosper. Now, here are your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
Hey, Nice Guy community, welcome back. It is Friday. It is the end of the week, and Doug Sandler on the other side of the microphone. My name is Strickland Bonner. I was going to say, I hope it's a payday for you, but I'm not going to turn this into the morning zoo.
No, you did that last week.
I know, that's why I'm not going to turn this into the morning zoo. I'm not going to do that.
Can't use the same material over again. That wouldn't be very Zen-like.
Oh, that's your little segue into our interview today.
I interviewed an amazing guy. His name is Dan Zigmond, and he wrote a book, interestingly enough, called Buddha's Diet, How to Lose Weight Without Losing Your Mind. You get the correlation there because totally. Zen and Buddha very and Zen. Mind. Get it? You like that? You like that?
I love it.
He was named by Wire magazine in the top 20 business geniuses you need to know. I mean, this is a legit guy, so a good guy. And what I found out in doing some research about Dan, which wasn't really why I was interested in having him on the show, although it turned into another amazing reason why to have him on the show, Dan is the director of analytics at Facebook.
That's what I love, man. You know me. I'm the numbers crunching guy, and that is fascinating to me. I mean, I couldn't even imagine having all of the numbers and the analytics for all Facebook users. How cool would that be?
So really cool interview. We do get into the whole culture of Facebook and their proximity to a lot of other companies like Instagram and Snapchat and LinkedIn and all of that. I mean, physically where they are located in very similar other social media platforms very close to them. Anyway, we start talking about the culture at Facebook. We talk obviously about his book. We talk about some of the reasons why as a culture we are constantly overeating. I think we do more grazing than we do meal eating. And he has some very interesting things to say about your diet and the things that are good for you and not good for you. And it's not what you eat, but more when you eat. So very cool interview.
No, it's way, way cool. I mean, they did a study on mice that said they gave mice a fatty diet. They ate whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. And of course, they got fat. But they had a control group that they gave them exactly the same food. And they could eat as much as they wanted, whenever they wanted, but only 9 to 12 hours a day. And the rest of the time, they were not allowed to eat at all. They only got water, and they didn't get fat.
Very interesting. Well, we promise not only will you not get fat if you listen to this episode, but we promise to deliver a learning experience that is entertaining and adds value to your life.
Wait a minute, Doug. It depends what you're eating and how long you're going to listen to the episode. Because like if you're binge listening and you listen for more than 12 hours at a time and you're eating the whole time, you might get fat. Very,
very true. Are you a binge listener to this? Gosh, if you are a binge listener to this, you've got like a long, how many hours? I don't even know. Of 330 some episodes that we've done.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
How many hours is that?
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
You would have to listen nonstop for 10 days in order to hear 10 days. Is that right?
At least, probably more than that.
Jeez, that's a long time.
Well, what do we do each week, right? Let's say we do 30 minutes per episode on average, right? 30 minutes times 5, so that's 2.5 hours a week, right? 2.5 hours a week times 52 weeks is going to be 170 hours or so.
Times 2.
So that's times 2. Well, we didn't do it 5 episodes a week for 2 years, but let's say 2 years.
Okay.
But yeah, some of our episodes were longer for a while. So let's say that. So let's call it 170 times 2 years, 320 hours of content or so, 340 hours of content divided by 24 hours in a day is 10, 12, 13, 14 days? That's like off the top of my head. 14 days
14 days. You'd have to listen nonstop for 14 days in order to hear.
Wow.
God, could you imagine how... Oh, My wife can't even listen to me for 10 minutes at a time and talk about somebody listening to me 14 days.
So true. It's so true.
God.
I'm looking over this website and I'm really liking this book because, I'm definitely at that point where I'm desperately trying to get off like this last, 10 pounds or so. And I have been for like 12 years or something. Exactly. The baby weight. Right.
Got 16 years of baby weight.
Exactly. And
that's gotta be, I don't mean to ask anything that's too invasive, but with triplets,
yeah,
how much weight does a woman gain when you have triplets?
Gosh, it's been so many years, I have no idea, honestly. I mean, I think Kim put on, 45, 50 pounds or something.
No, that's like normal though.
Is it? I don't even know.
I think so.
It's been a long time. I don't remember if she was being weighed. I mean, I'm sure she was all along to make sure everything was safe, but I don't know what they were yet.
Did the girls, were they prematurely born or were they born on time?
Yeah, they were 34 weeks. 40 weeks is full term. And, with triplets, it's kind of expected that it's not going to go to full term. But they were 34 weeks, yeah. So they were basically 6 weeks early. Interesting.
All right. Well, that's neither here nor there for today's episode with Dan Zigmond. So do we have anything to do before we get to that? Did we talk about Patreon yet? Did we do that?
Promise statement?
Yep. Did that already to provide a learning experience that is entertaining and adds value to your life. We are proud to be affiliated with the C-Suite Radio Network. We did that. And
if you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/nice guys. And for as little as $2 a month, you can get all kinds of bonus shittery that we do for free. I mean, not for free, like you're paying for it, but you're paying, come on, $2 a month for it. Come on.
It's basically free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's half of a Starbucks coffee once a month. Come on, you can afford that.
The Starbucks cookies are $2.50.
You shouldn't be eating the cookies. They're very bad for you.
Oh, are they really? I love their cookies.
Okay, so it's you could cut back on a single Starbucks cookie a month and still have 50 cents left over.
No, okay. All right. And then I could give the 50 cents to the show.
There you go.
Can you contribute $2.50?
I think so.
We don't have to worry about that.
No, I'm pretty sure that it says at least $2 a month. So you could make that $2.50 a month if you wanted to.
Okay.
That'd be cool. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. We'll take
I'm waiting for that first one.
28 cents. We'll take that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that first person to do that.
All right, let's get to our interview with Dan Zigmond. Right from the get-go, I'm going to add value to our relationship and bust a myth. Did you know that Buddha was not a fat guy? He was thin. Today's guest, while he did not personally know Buddha, I mean, can you really ever know anybody? He has studied his teachings, his ways, and his diet. Dan Zigmond is here with the nice guys to share his message and glimpse at the book he co-authored, Buddha's Diet, How to Lose Weight Without Losing Your Mind. I love that title. Also named by Wire Magazine in the 20 Business Geniuses You Need to Know Now. Welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
My pleasure. I had to dig a little bit for the 20 business geniuses you need to know. That should be like your I would wear that proudly as your moniker of, well, you got so many other things going on in your life. I guess that's probably just even like a third thing that's going on.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
It's nice. So let's start here, Dan. What compelled you to ever want to come on the show after you, this, it's a little bit off kilter. Have you heard anything about us or are you just coming at this cold?
I had heard about you guys and thought that it might be an interesting way to spread the word a little bit about our book and about the message around a Buddha's diet.
In all transparency and honesty, I have not had a chance to read the entire book, but I did read a number of the excerpts and I listened to some of the audio, and it is kind of fascinating. I love the author that actually reads the book, and do they match you up with her? Or is that something that you went there with here's who I want to read the book?
The publisher found her for us. They asked if we wanted to read ourselves, and neither of us had any experience doing that. And so they went and found her. And yes, I think she did a great job.
Yeah, you feel a little bit like a rock star when you're actually sitting in that booth. I read my own book, which probably, I don't know, looking back, I don't know, was that a good idea or a bad idea? I spent so many hours in that recording booth, but it was kind of fun. But she is definitely professional and does a good job of reading it. I have to imagine that the Buddha was a nice guy. Can you comment on that?
Absolutely. I think he was. And a big part of his teaching is to be mindful in our relationships with people. And I think when we do pay attention to how we are relating to people and how they're responding and reacting to us, we are naturally inclined to be kind.
And I, as I was kind of reflecting about some of the information and the knowledge that I have, and you have all of these stereotypes that you have going off in your head. Number one stereotype is that I always envision Buddha as this big man because of all the statues, but I think it's more that he's a little bit larger than life. I guess that's how I symbolize him, as why he's a large man. But again, there's a whole theory to that, I'm sure. I thought that monks actually had, because I'm thinking about the diet, I thought monks had to eat whatever they were offered. Was there really a diet for monks?
Well, so yes and no. You're right that monks traditionally ate whatever the local villagers gave them. But the one restriction that Buddha placed on his community was that they only eat for certain hours of the day. So that in their particular case, they ate from dawn until noon. We advocate something a little more flexible than that, about a 9-hour window. But that is the foundation of Buddha's diet, as we describe it, is that you should limit your eating to certain hours of the day, and basically use intermittent fasting as a way of kind of getting your diet under control.
So help share a little bit there for just a moment, because the idea of having a diet book or a book that involves your diet and then talking about, well, you got to fast, there's an obvious connection that I'm putting in my mind, and again, help dispel this myth about your book specifically, but about the overall lifestyle in general, is that it's more than just fasting. That's not just the way to create a diet that actually can create some unhealthy habits in your life. So talk about the diet itself and maybe this fasting thing and how it relates to your program that you've put together.
So again, Buddha didn't focus so much on what you would eat. He focused much more on when you eat. And we follow that model as well. And so, for example, for myself, I follow the roughly 9-hour window. I eat from about 9 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. at night. And I think when you do that, you do find yourself gravitating towards foods that are a little more wholesome, a little more sustaining. If the very last thing I eat at 5:59 is a big bag of potato chips, those potato chips were literally engineered to make me hungrier, not to make me full.
Is that right?
It's very difficult to then go the rest of the evening without wanting to eat something else. One of the things that Buddha talked about a lot was, in a sense, to be your own scientist, to pay attention to how all these things affect you. And I think as you start doing that, as you start bringing a little mindfulness to your eating, you will find the foods that fulfill you and sustain you, and start shying away from the simple sugars and so forth that really just make you hungrier.
You brought up an interesting concept. You've mentioned a couple of things. Excuse me. One of them was this mindfulness concept, and then you mentioned also diet, or the food, the way of life that you live. Talk about that for a second, because I think it's so important that, as we, especially many in our nice guy community, they own their own businesses or they're busy people. I mean, who's not busy? In today's world, everybody is running. It's not like anybody is saying, hey, I used 23 of my hours today and I have this extra hour. I'm just going to stand around doing nothing. That never is the case. So share for a moment how that extra, how mindfulness really fits into the world of eating. Because if you just focus on what you're doing, just like mindfulness meditation is focus on your breath, mindful eating involves probably focusing on the food that you're putting in your mouth. So explain the practical process of that. Does it just mean watch what you're picking up, watch what you're putting in your mouth, or does it go more than that?
Well, so for example, in very practical terms, I live and work here in the heart of Silicon Valley, where you're completely correct. Everybody is running around. Everybody is busy. But just as one very simple thing, I do make a big effort not to just eat lunch at my desk, which is something I did for years and years, but to actually go and sit somewhere and actually give lunch at least a few minutes of my, more or less undivided attention, where I'm sitting, I'm eating, maybe I'm socializing, talking to some colleagues, but I'm not on my phone, I'm not on my computer, I'm not trying to balance a bowl of soup while I'm typing or something like that.
Or it's never eat soup while you're driving, Dan. Just
that sounds like good advice.
Thanks.
So, to try to actually give eating, a little bit of your attention, rather than squeezing it into everything else you're doing. It takes a little bit of discipline, because it's not like at 12 or 1 o'clock, I don't have a million things I could be doing. But I do find that if I take, even just 15 minutes to sit and eat and not not do work. That first of all, I actually eat better because I take the time to think about what I want to eat. But it also, I think, just provides a useful just kind of break and gives me a chance to clear my head for a minute. And I think I probably end up working better too with that little bit of a natural break that eating kind of forces on my day. So I think that mindfulness is something I try to bring to everything I do, but it's a challenge where our lives are filled with distractions these days. So in some ways you can, rather than using food as one more distraction, you can use it as a way of stepping back for a few moments and clearing your head.
I notice, for example, in my house, my wife, she is an entrepreneur through and through, and she is somebody that is constantly on the go, extremely busy. And again, we are all busy. I think that she has a different way of kind of displaying her busyness. She literally will graze on the run. And not that she's not overweight at all, but I know that it can't be good for her. And with the expression I've used it many times on the show is, I can see the splinter in somebody else's eye, but not the forest in front of my own. I see this what I think is an issue with how you can't stand up in front of the sink and just eat. It just isn't, for me, it just doesn't work well. Is there you need to sit down in a quiet space? It's okay to have conversation, but focus on what you're eating. Again, is grazing one of those things that's just not a acceptable thing from this dieting perspective?
Well, so one of the things when you start paying attention to when you eat is that you quickly realize that many of us are just eating all the time. A lot of the book talks about some studies that were done out of the Salk Institute. A friend of mine, Sachin Panda down there, is one of the leading researchers on food and fasting and diet. And so he did a study where he had people actually literally take a picture of everything they were eating, during the day. And then because, on our phones, these pictures are time-stamped, he could figure out, what were the hours people were eating. And the median time from the first thing they would eat to the last thing they would eat was, I think, 15 hours. So that means half of the population is eating for more than 15 hours a day, which essentially means they're eating for every hour that they're awake. And that's just not healthy. I mean, there are parts of your body, like your heart and your lungs, that were really designed to work 24/7 and just to go nonstop. And obviously, if those organs ever stop, you're in big trouble. But your metabolism is not like that. Your metabolism just was never intended to work all the time. And if you look like in the animal kingdom, there are animals that eat at night and there are animals that eat during the day, but there aren't really animals other than us that just eat all the time. And so, you do need to give your body a break. And one of the issues with that kind of grazing is that it often just doesn't stop. And you find yourself eating, like I said, 15, 16, even more hours a day, and not giving your body a chance to actually kind of digest that food and give your metabolism a chance to rest and recover.
And I guess it wouldn't be as bad, but the way that food is engineered these days, it sounds like from what you said earlier, it's engineered so that you're going to get hungry again. So they actually are doing, again, I don't know how the engineering of food exactly works, but it sounds like a very interesting and a very potentially harmful process to get into, because you're just continuing to work your body and it can't burn off what it's got going on in it.
That's right. I mean, if you think about, imagine that it was your job to come up with a potato chip or something like that. What's your goal in creating that processed food? Well, it's probably not to leave the person hungry and uninterested in eating for several hours. Your goal would be to have the person want to eat more of those chips that you just developed. Right. And so sure enough, when smart people put their mind to something, it's amazing what humans can accomplish. And so we've managed to design food that makes you hungry.
So, Nice Guy community, you won't be aware of this because you may not have seen or heard of Dan before he actually came on this show. So we're introducing him to you. I'm hoping that you've heard of him to a certain degree through the book. I'm hoping you've heard of him through some other things like the program that he is a part of through the 20 Business Geniuses to Follow on Wired. But what's so interesting in my investigation and a little bit of research, which I didn't have to dig too far, is that your background is fascinating, Dan. You're the director of analytics at Facebook.
That's right.
So share just for a second. Did what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did Facebook provide a forum or an outlet for you to create this book? Did the book create the opportunity for you to figure out what else you wanted to be when you grew up in life, or did they commingle together and have nothing to do with each other? Where do you stand with that? And talk about your position at Facebook.
So, for a long time, I became a Buddhist in college. I've been studying Buddhism for years and years. And in fact, the origins of the book really were in the period after college when I lived in Southeast Asia, and I lived in a Buddhist temple where the monks practiced this style of eating and got to see it firsthand. But at the same time, I've always had a job and lived in the world. I've got a family. I've got two wonderful teenage daughters. And I have this fantastic job at Facebook, leading a team of data scientists. For most of my life, those two kind of strains were really quite separate. I studied Buddhism and taught a little at a temple here on the weekends, and then I had my day job where in Silicon Valley, where I was focused on software and data and so forth. This book was really a chance in some ways to bring these two threads together for the first time in my life. When I realized that some of the most recent scientific data was now supporting this diet that I knew about that Buddha had discovered or developed 2,500 years ago. And so it's been exciting for me to write something that on the one hand is about data and evidence and science, and on the other hand is drawing from this Buddhist tradition that's fascinated me for more than 2 decades now.
What's so cool about it too is I would imagine, and again, I don't know the part of the country that you're in terms of just the people, this type of people, but I have to think they're very outside the box thinkers. They're very open thinkers. That's obviously there's plenty of genius. There's a lot of genius that is in that part of the country because that's where a lot of the tech exists. I'd have to think that Facebook on its own, the staff at Facebook, would be totally open to this idea because it's just there seems such good science involved. There's a little bit of science, there's a little bit of spirituality, there's a little bit of religion, all the things that kind of to a certain degree, certain parts of this country would call that taboo, but other parts of this country would embrace. Are you finding that's the case with Facebook?
I am. I've been very, happy with how open and accepting everyone is here. Facebook is really built on this concept of helping people to be and share their authentic self, and we really practice that here in the office as well. So I was a little nervous when the book came out. It's been about 6 months ago now. Yeah. What would my colleagues think about the fact that I wrote a book on Buddhism and weight loss and these things that don't feel very connected to my day job, at least on the surface. But I get lots of questions about it. Lots of my friends and colleagues here have bought the book or talked to me about it. Every now and then someone stops me in the cafeteria to see what I got on my tray.
That's funny.
It's a lot of fun.
That's great. It's almost like you need your own support groups that are there to kind of put the. Do you have a number of people? I'm assuming there's a lot of people. I don't know the science of the diet specifically, so I don't know. Is it a program that you can do in a group with support and almost like I don't want to call it Weight Watchers. It's totally not Weight Watchers, but almost like in a Weight Watchers-esque style of group setting.
So you certainly don't need a group to do it, but I think it is something where, like any big change in your life, it's helpful to have other people that are embarking on it with you. And there are several people here. One of my colleagues, another data scientist, bought the book and tried the diet and ended up writing a review for us on Amazon, which I appreciated. He lost quite a bit of weight. And in fact, just yesterday, I was sitting in a meeting, and the guy next to me, who I'd never talked to about this before, mentioned that he was on the diet now and really enjoying it, and so that's been fun to see how it's affecting people I know and helping them have a healthier relationship to food.
Yeah, all you got to do is get Mark Zuckerberg to endorse the book, and you know what's going to happen at that point. I don't know if that's completely off the radar screen. Is that something you can do?
Oh, I don't know. He's a pretty busy guy. I'm not sure that he's spending a lot of time reading diet books right now.
I don't. He might not have to buy the book. He could just say a nice word about it. It's always interesting when celebs and people that are larger than life actually do things that the mortal men like me. I wouldn't put you in the mortal category. You're definitely in that upper echelon. But they wear your T-shirt, they wear your sneakers, they wear your anything, and then all of a sudden there's a shot or a picture of you on social media with a Nike emblem or even your book in front of them, and it can make a huge difference. So maybe just strategically just slip it into his mailbox. I don't know if that works.
It's a good idea.
It's if you ever need business advice about what to do with Mark, just let me know, and I'm happy to help. All right, Dan, it's time to dish. If Facebook, Snapchat, LinkedIn, and YouTube got in a street brawl, who would win if shanks were allowed?
That's a tough one. We may be too nice to really handle a street brawl like that.
Yeah. Do you do any like behind the back talking about the other social media platforms like Snapchat and LinkedIn and YouTube?
The funny thing is that Silicon Valley is a small place, so we all have friends and colleagues. I know people at all those companies. I used to work at YouTube myself, so
Wow.
of course we're competitors, but at the same time, it's a small world, and we're all trying to make it a little bit of a better place.
That's awesome to hear. I love the fact that you're spreading the wealth at some other social channels as well. All right, I want to talk for a second about tools, tips, and tricks. So I'm going to give you a pass on any of those three that you want, but I'm going to ask you to help me. I love to put the Nice Guy community into action. So what I want to do is get a tool, a tip, and a trick, some things that you've been using. And again, you can take a pass on one of them if you want, but I'd love to get two of them out of you. Are there certain tools that you use on a regular basis, tips you can provide to the Nice Guy community, or tricks that you do, even life hacks that you do on a regular basis? You can start on any of those three that you want to.
Well, in terms of tools, there are some great apps for your phone that can help with all kinds of things related to Buddha's diet. There's I use the Insight Timer meditation app, which is a great way to just, I use it even just for 10 minutes to give myself some time to sit and reflect.
That's called Insight?
That's called Insight Timer. There's another brand new app called Zero to help people with intermittent fasting that I've heard great things about. So I think that those are some great tools to try. In terms of tips, the first step that we recommend on this diet is really a simple one, which is just to try limiting your eating to literally 12 hours a day. So whenever you have breakfast, if you have breakfast at 7 o'clock, try to finish dinner by 7 p.m. Most people, when they first hear that, they say that sounds trivial, that sounds easy. But when you try it, again, you realize how much of this kind of mindless grazing you're doing kind of at all hours.
Right.
And I think that's a really nice way to just kind of get a little bit of control over your diet as a first step. All
right. You want to take a pass on the life hack, or you think you have a life hack in mind?
I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I think, I guess if I was, the one last thing, and maybe this is more of a tip as well, is really try not eating lunch at your desk. I think so many of us in business do that. It's become second nature. For some people, it's even a point of pride that they don't take a break in the middle of the day. But give yourself 15 minutes and see what that does.
Oh, I love it. Those are great, and they really fall well within the in the category of the reason that you're on the show, and I do love that so very much. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'm going to ask you just to say the first thing that comes to mind. Just take 5-10 seconds to answer each one of these questions. Here comes question number one. Be relatable, Dan. As an entrepreneur, as a guy that has written a book and understands a little bit more about life than you've kind of seen a big picture. Be relatable. Is there something that you suck at?
I'm terrible in the gym. I go once a week with a trainer, and she just can't stand working with me because I make so little progress.
That's great. Hey, at least you go once a week, man. I can't seem to get in there. I have my yoga mat right behind me. I do that for 10 minutes a day now. I'm just getting started. It's like, it's really hard just to do anything.
Yeah, but every little bit helps.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Be transparent. How did you pay your bills when you first got going?
When I left school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I even thought about becoming a monk and giving everything up. When I had to actually find a job, my very first job was just coding. I just got a job as an entry level software engineer and worked my way up very, very, very slowly through the ranks.
All right, be confident. What do you do as an entrepreneur or as a business owner that's as good as it gets? Since I would have to include, as an author, a business owner, because you do have a business on your own right there.
I'm not sure I understand that one. Can you just say that again?
Sure, absolutely. As an entrepreneur, so as a guy that's written the book, you got to do something really good. Are you a good writer? Are you a good marketer? You didn't just sit back and just say, okay, I wrote my book, I'm out of here now. You probably did something that you would consider, hey, I actually was good at this. As a guy that owns a business, again, the business that you own as an author, you're self-employed.
To me, it's all been about perseverance, and my philosophy has been that I'll talk to anybody about the book who is interested and wants to hear what we have to say, and I think that's what's made the difference. It's it's very hard to get noticed in publishing these days. There's thousands of books coming out all the time, but that perseverance of just talking to anybody who wants to talk about it, I think has at least so far paid off.
Hey, I'm curious about this next question because since you work at Facebook, I'm curious how you would order these things. Put these in priority order. I'm going to give you 4 words and just put them in any order. There's no right order. There's no wrong order. There's just the way that you're going to put it just based upon how you are and who you are. Employees, customers, products, systems.
I would say customers, products, employees, systems.
Nice. And any reason why you put customers first?
In the end, they're the ones making the choices. And, so I think if you don't put them first, somebody else will.
Yeah, so true. All right, I'm going to ask you a tough one. This might be one you have to think about. And again, you can take a pass if you can't come up with the answer fairly quickly, but I'm always curious what the answer to this one is. If you had to pick a song title that represented your life, any idea what you'd pick?
Wow, that is a tough one.
My co-host, I think he picked "I Got the Music in Me." He's a guy that's in a band for a living. I'm just trying to think what would be a good one for that a guy that's a Buddhist diet expert that works for Facebook be.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got a good one for that one. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thinking. Hey, if you think of one, you can email it to me, and I'll put it in the show notes so everybody can see. That is a tough one. And in all fairness to you, Dan, and I did not mean to put you on the spot. We've been asking the question now for about a month. Those interviews are just now surfacing because we're about a month behind in putting things up. I started sending that question as a part of my Q&A ahead of time because put on the spot. It's not an easy question. I don't even know if I can answer that question and put on the spot. I was curious which way you would go. You're such a centered person, and I see you almost knowing everything as a wise man.
The one that came to my mind was you can't always get what you want, but that sounds a little too pessimistic.
No, that's not. That's great. How does it? You can't always get, but if you. If you
try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need.
You get what you need. Now that you can look at that as a pessimistic way to look at things, but then you're going to get what you need anyway. So that's the positive side of that song. And the Rolling Stones are so amazing anyway. They sang that, right? I'm pretty sure that they sang that song.
Yep.
All right, Dan, one final question on a personal side. Do you have your phone anywhere near you?
I do.
Okay, great. Do you have an iPhone or something inferior?
I've got an iPhone.
Excellent. I'm thinking that everybody at Facebook, they probably get the iPhone as they're walking in the door. Is that correct?
We do have quite a few Android users here, really? But I've just become very attached.
Interesting thought. Go to your photo app. I'm curious to the answers to these next couple of questions. Go to your photo app. What is the last picture you took?
The last picture I took, I was walking over to the Instagram office, which is just down the road from me here, and there are these beautiful cherry blossoms blossoming right now. And the last picture I took was of a cherry tree blossoming right next to Instagram.
Dan, what do you think about their logo, their font change on their logo?
I'm not a designer, so I don't have a strong opinion on those things, but I think they do a nice job.
Can I go out on a limb here and say I don't want to offend anybody at all, but I mean it's such a simple font. It just doesn't represent who I think Instagram is. I know they didn't call me to ask me my opinion or anything, but
I'll pass that along.
Yeah, could you pass that along? And if there's anybody that's upper echelons at Facebook that needs help with the logo, can you send them my way? I'm a horrible designer, but I have some ideas. And go to your texting app, Dan. What's the last thing you either sent or received in your text messages?
Let's see. I mean, it's probably something very boring, like when I need to pick up my daughter from dance. In fact, so That seems to be my most frequent topic in texting.
Was that your final was that your final
That's
answer?
my final answer.
Okay, no, we'll accept that. We'll accept that. Hey, Dan, thank you so much. If our Nice Guy community wanted to get a hold of you to get more information about your book or to connect with you about the diet specifically, do you have a publicist? Because you probably don't want anybody talking to you, right?
Well, we've got a Facebook page, Buddha's Diet Book on Facebook, and we've got Twitter at Buddha's Diet, and we love to hear from people.
That is great. Nice Guy community. We'll make sure we put all of the links to the show notes to Dan's book and to Dan's Twitter account as well. Dan Zigmond, thank you so much for being a part of the Nice Guy community. Thanks for being on the show today. Well appreciated, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, so his book again, Buddha's Diet. Let me see if I can come up with the entire title. Buddha's Diet, How to Lose Weight Without Losing Your Mind. And we all know in the Nice Guy community, I've already lost my mind, so I'm going to have to go find it maybe in this book. Never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Dan Zigmond for being a part of the show today. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
If you're hearing my voice right now, you obviously enjoy the podcast. So why not help the guys out? Click on the Patreon link in the show notes, and for as little as $2 a month, you can show your support. Or show us whatever you want.